guys. So this is going to be a very short tutorial about exporting your skeletal mesh to Unreal. This many of us just take it for granted and it sounds really obvious, but actually it might be quite hard sometimes. So I just want to go through the steps. So here's my rig. It's the rig I just built with my auto rig, a horse. And what exactly goes to Unreal from Maya? So all that goes to Unreal is the geometry and the skeleton. All the other stuff, it needs to go away. So normally we have a script that exports it, but in this case, we're going to do it manually. So the first thing you got to do is obviously make sure you saved it somewhere to not mess the rig, but you would want to delete the rig and delete all the stuff in the rig. So the problem with that is that once you do that, weird things might happen. So if you, let's say, select controls, gizmos, and everything else here, then that can happen. And so that makes it very hard for people to just export their stuff. So the problem is that when you delete rigs in Maya, those joints are all connected to that rig and they might be altered and you don't want that. So the first thing you got to do is you got to find where your skeleton is. And in this case, my skeleton sits in this control rig skeleton group. And the first thing you want to do is disconnect all the connections from the bones. So if you just shift click here, you will see that there is like a lot of stuff going on here, right? A lot of joints and a lot of constraints in that skeleton. So the first thing I would probably do is just edit, delete all that type constraints, and that should kill all the constraints in the scene. And unfortunately, in this case, it still caused some kind of an issue here. So if that happens, what you can also do is just select all the bones. So if I just select the whole hierarchy here now, I'm selecting bones, but I'm also selecting constraints, right? So how do I select just the bones in the hierarchy? What I would recommend in this case is basically write a little script, very quick little script. So like I have this root here, so cmds. So like first of all, from Maya import cmds, right? That's kind of importing your commands. And then selection equals cmds ls selection equals true. That's going to get us the selection. And then now, so because I'm just going to select the root joint, I want to list the whole hierarchy inside that root joint. So whole hierarchy equals cmds ls selection 0, the first element of selection. In this case, I know that I just have one selected. All descendants equals true. So that's going to list me the whole hierarchy. So let's just see what happens when I do cmds select that whole hierarchy. And let's run it. Okay, all descendants. Oh, sorry. List relatives here, my friends. I'm sorry. Let's just do it. Yeah, so as you can see, it selected the whole thing, including the constraints, but it also deselected the original joint. So if I want to make sure that my original joint is included in the selection, which in this case I do, is plus selection. Just do that. And that will now select the whole thing with whatever you had originally selected. Okay. Now, I want to filter out everything that's not a joint. So how do I do that? So we can use a list comprehension. I'm not sure exactly how it's called, but it's really cool. So let's just say square bracket x for x in if cmds node type x equals joint. So that will select me everything inside that whole hierarchy if it's a joint. So let's select that and let's run it. And that now selected everything in that hierarchy that is a joint. So I'm going to give you the script. It's really useful to filter out your selection filters out hierarchy by type, joint in this case. I really like those kind of scripts. And now with that one, what I can do here, if I don't want it to break, all I have to do is select all those channels here, right click on them and break connections. And that will now break all the connections uh, to the uh, to the joints. Now, if it didn't, it might be that the connections are locked. So I can try again. And sometimes you gotta do it twice. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back. Today I've got something special for all you rigging and game dev enthusiasts out there. If you've ever wanted to master quadruped rigging from scratch, then I've got the perfect course for you. My quadruped rigging course is designed to take you from zero experience to creating fully rigged animated creature, no prior knowledge needed. We'll go through everything, building the skeleton, skinning, creating controls, and setting up advanced rig systems. By the end of the course, you'll be able to animate your creature integrated in Unreal Engine 5, bringing your game projects to life. The course is available on my website at Kornica3D Click and also on Patreon. Become a member, support my work, and get access to this course and a lot more. Trust me, you won't regret it. So now if I go edit, delete all by type constraints, it will not flip my skeleton. It will flip the rig, but that's fine. It depends on the rig. Sometimes some rigs break, sometimes some rigs don't break. So now, with all those constraints and connections deleted, I am probably okay to remove all the rig components. So just press delete and they're gone from the scene. Now here I have my skeleton, I have my geometry. Now it's very important that your root joint of your skeleton is sitting in the outliner without any grouping. Also, hopefully all those groups are zeroed and clean. If not, that's a different kind of problem. But in this case, we can try to unparent this joint, and in this case, it was fine. If any of those groups had scales or values, it would be problematic. But right now, it looks like it worked just fine. I would also like to unparent my geometry and hear the same story. Just make sure that none of those parent groups are actually having any transforms. So let's unparent it, and looks good. So we can delete everything else. We can also kill all those layers here. There's no need for them anymore. I mean, they don't really uh, cause any issues, but we don't need them. The next thing you probably want to do is make sure there's no animations on your skeleton. So there's none, that's fine. You can go to your hypershade and go edit, delete unused nodes. That's really useful. It will shrink the file size. And then once you're done, it's basically about just exporting that whole thing. So file, you could save it as a copy, rig cleaned up, but you don't have to. Export all. Just use the deset settings, the reset the default settings. Just export the FBX. Pick the FBX from the list here. If you don't have it in the list, make sure that you have the FBX exporter enabled in your plugin manager, which it should be by default. There you go. And I believe that's it. Just export all. And then you can just navigate to where you want it to export. So I'm just going to go to my horse folder and then export. So I'm just going to name it sk horse new. Export. And that should export the whole thing. Don't just close this just yet. Maybe verify it first in Unreal. So I just made I'm going to make a folder here called horse new. And in Unreal, I'm going to go right click, import, and then go to that, where am I going? I'm sorry guys. 5.5, this is C, characters, horse new. Horse new. Promise it was there. Horse, export, sk horse new. Import that. Now here, this is new to me because this is a new Unreal. It has different importing than the previous one had, but either way, you have different presets here. You can just reset it so it's default, and it sounds like by default it's just doing the thing that it's supposed to be doing. I don't have any skeleton, so it will make a new skeleton. You could import materials. You don't have to import materials. You can kind of go through the settings, but in general, it should just work with the default resetted settings. So import, and here we are. So what it did is it did make a skeleton. It did import that skeletal mesh, and I like to rename that scale horse new. It just makes it easier. And this is going to be phys for physics asset horse new. And this is going to be SK horse new. That's proper. Okay, so I go in here and I can see, and it looks like everything worked. You could actually skin in Unreal now, and you could do your rigging in there too. So that's cool. That's the new thing they added in this. That's the editing tools. Either way, it looks like it imported. The normals might look a little bit weird. Maybe the material is a little bit weird. But for this particular case, I don't really care too much about that. You can always go in and edit the settings. It seems like it kind of made the material here for me, which I don't know why it did it. I have a material already, so if you don't want this particular material, you can just delete it. Now your thing will not have a material. We can see the normals. Okay, that's great. So as you can see in the new Unreal, the windows are opening super tiny sometimes. Okay, we can zoom in on this, and now you can see that it doesn't really have any material. You can just assign a material that you have. So in this case, brown horse is going to work for me. And here we go. Here's our asset, and we can see that it's deforming when I move it. So it works just fine. Okay, so let's save that, and that's basically it, my friends, for this tutorial. I hope it was useful. Let me answer any questions in the comments, and see you in the next one. Hey everyone, I'm working on my passion project, Beasts vs. Undead, a turn-based RPG inspired by classics like Heroes of Might and Magic and Age of Wonders, but with its own unique twist. If this sounds like your kind of game, I'd love your support on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll get exclusive access to the latest builds, stunning new artwork, in-depth game development tutorials, behind-the-scenes dev diaries, and even the opportunity to help shape the game itself. Your support means the world and helps bring this dream to life, so check out my Patreon and join the journey.